Good morning to all. Welcome to your English class. Today we are dealing with a new chapter. Our first chapter, its name is The Portrait of a Lady, written by Khushwant Singh. Have you heard about Khushwant Singh? If no, let's know him very soon. Okay? So, The Portrait of a Lady. By hearing the name, can you guess something? What is it about? Is it about a lady? Or is it about the picture of a lady? Do you know what is a portrait? Portrait means a picture. A portrait. So, maybe you can think that the story is about the picture of a lady or it is about a lady. We don't know what it is. So, it's a chance. Let's see what all things the great writer Khushwant Singh had written in this story. Okay? So, this is the story of the author. He describes his relationship with his grandmother over the years. He pens down by daily activities and how she evolved as a character as time passed by. And it explains her appearance, which helps create an image in reader's mind. So while reading the story, we can simply understand how our author's grandmother looks like or how she was. Okay, so let's start. Are you ready? Okay. So, the portrait of a lady. My grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for the 20 years that I had known her. People said that she had once been young and pretty and had even had a husband. But that was hard to believe. My grandfather's portrait hung above the mantelpiece in the drawing room. He wore a big turban and loose-fitting clothes. His long white beard covered the best part of his chest and he looked at least 100 years old. He did not look the sort of a person who would have a wife or children. He looked as if he could only have lots and lots of grandchildren. As for my grandmother, being young and pretty, the thought was almost revolting. She often told us of the games she used to play as a child that seemed quite absurd and undignified on her part, and we treated it like the fables of the prophets she used to tell us. So, in the first paragraph, the author, Khushwant Singh, is describing about his grandmother. Okay? So, he says that he had known her for the past 20 years, and these 20 years, he was told that she had been wrinkled face and old look. Whenever he started to see the lady, see his grandmother, he can see that old face and wrinkles on her skin. So, so many people around them or their relatives say that she was once young and pretty, but it's hard to believe. For him, for the author, it's hard to believe that once his grandmother was very young and pretty and had a husband. His husband, that means Khushwant Singh's grandfather's portrait is hung on the mantelpiece. Mantelpiece means shelf. And by looking at picture, it's hard to believe that he was once young and pretty like grandmother. And also, by looking at picture, in the picture, the grandfather wore a long, very big turban. Turban means head cloth, a turban and a long, loose-fitting clothes, and he had a long beard which almost covers his chest. That much big. Okay? So, by looking at portrait, Khushwant Singh says that it's hard to believe that he had a wife and children. But it is because he looks like 100 years old. So that Khushwant Singh is saying that it is very easy to believe that he had lots of grandchildren. Not wife and children, but grandchildren. So because of that look, he is saying so. And he is also saying that it is hard to believe that his grandparents were once young and pretty. Okay? I think you understand this. Okay, let's continue. She had always been short and fat and slightly spots of stain or anything like that. It's so tidy, or it's very clean and tidy. Okay. Then he also agrees that she never have been pretty, but she was always beautiful. And she hobbled about the house in tall and wide, with one hand resting on her waist to balance a stool, and the other turning the beds of her rosary. She used to run around the house using She used to run around the house by balancing her body with one of her hands. She kept it in her waist, and we already know that the author says that she is a bend. She had a slight bend. So she balanced her body using her one hand, and on the other hand, you used to carry a rosary, and she's always chanting prayers. So we know that she's an old lady. So she's more attracted, or she's more dedicated to God. So she always prays, chants a lot, chants prayers a lot. So this is all about her, and our author says that she was like the winter landscape in the mountain. The winter landscape in the mountain, an expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment. That means author compares this lady or his grandmother with the winter landscape in the mountains. How the mountains looks like while it is a winter season. It is full of what? White snow. Okay, like that. The author's grandmother also had some hair locks, that is silver locks of hair, and she used to wear white sari. And she is a very calm person, very lovable person, very happy person. That's why the author compares her with the mountain during the winter landscape. Did you get me? Okay, I hope that you get it. So let's continue. My grandmother and I were good friends. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. She used to wake up me in the morning and get me ready for school. She said her morning prayer in monotonous sing-song while she bathed and dressed me in the hope that I would listen and get to know it by heart. I listened because I loved her voice, but never bothered to learn it. Then she would fetch my wooden slate, which she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk, a tiny earthen ink pot, and a red pen. Tie them all in the bundle and hand it to me. After breakfast of a thick stale chapati with a little butter and sugar spread on it, we went to school. She carried several stale chapatis with her for the village dogs. So this is the routine they followed. While Khushwant Singh had schools, how his grandmother looks him and cares for him. Let's see. My grandmother and I were good friends. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. So now the third paragraph, from the third paragraph onwards, the author is saying how Khushwant Singh and his grandmother, or intimacy about both of them, the grandmother and the grandchild. Okay, so in that he says that his parents left him while they moved to city. So from that day onwards, or from that moment onwards, the grandmother and Khushwant Singh were very close to each other. Okay, so when his parents left him with grandmother, that's why they were good friends. She used to wake me up in the morning and get me ready for school. So she looked after everything of Khushwant Singh, and she said her morning prayer in a monotonous sing-song while she bathed and dressed me in the hope that I would listen and get to know it by heart. Her routine is like she used to chant her mantras or prayers while she bathing or getting ready the author to school. In the way that she tried to make him aware of that prayers. Unknowingly, maybe by hearing these prayers continuously, he get a chance to by heart it. That's why she used to recite all her prayers while getting him to listen to the prayers, but he never got bothered about its learning or bothered to learn it. He listened to it because it was so melodious. His grandmother's voice was so good and so melodious. That's why she had an attractive voice. That's why her daughter was listening to the prayers. Listen to that recitation. He doesn't or he never wants to learn it by heart. Then she would fetch my wooden slate, which she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk, a tiny earthen ink pot and a red pen, tie them all in a bundle and hand it to me. After breakfast, on a thick steel chapati with a little butter and sugar spread on it, we went to school. She carried several stale chapatis with her for the village dogs. So then, after bathing and getting ready to school, what the grandmother did is she used to make her slate clean, and she also tied up the chalk and pen and ink pot as a bundle and hand over to Kushwant Singh. This is the daily routine they followed, because everything that he wanted to carry to school, everything that grandmother get ready, everything that he wanted to, he needed in the school. Okay. Then also she packed some stale chapatis for their breakfast. Stale chapatis means the chapatis that they are already made, maybe previous night or anything. That's stale chapatis. Also, they carry some stale chapatis with them for the village dogs. Grandmother carries some stale chapatis on the way to give it to the village dogs on the way. Okay, so it shows how kind grandmother was, how his grandmother was, how kind she was. Okay. My grandmother always went to school with me because the school was attached to the temple. The priest taught us the alphabet and the morning prayer, while the children sat in rows on either side of the veranda, singing the alphabet or the prayer in the chorus. My grandmother sat inside reading the scriptures. When we had both finished, we would walk back together. This time the village dogs would meet us at the table door. They followed us to our home, growling and fighting with each other for the chapatis we threw to them. So, this is their routine. The grandmother also accompanied the owner to the school, because his school is next to the temple. When she accompanied him to school, and our owner Kushwant Singh entered into the school for studies, while she spent all that school time next to the temple. When Kushwant Singh is learning some prayers and some scriptures there, while grandmother is reading some religious books and all, and she spends the whole time in the temple. And also they went back together after finishing both of their works in the school and in the temple. They went back to home each other. While they were going back, they also met that street dogs. They gave food to these street dogs, followed them rolling, thinking that they might get some more food. Did you get me? So this is the routine they followed, and this is how they live together, and this is how they have intimacy together. Because while going to school and going back to home, both grandmother and the child used to speak what all things he had done in the school, and what all happened that today, what all things that happened today. So they have a very good communication with each other. That's why they had a good bond with each other. When my parents were comfortably settled in the city, they sent for us. That was a turning point in our friendship. Although we shared the same room, my grandmother no longer came to school with me. I used to go to an English school in a motor bus. There were no dogs in the streets, and she took to feeding sparrows in the courtyard of her city house. Then what happened? While these all things are going very well, what happened to them? There was a turning point in their life that his parents, Kushwant Singh parents, now settled in the city. They can afford their family also with them, so that they bring grandma facilities to fetch its children, and also so that all the rest going in a motor bus, so they lost the company. Even though in the city, they both of them, grandmother and Kushwant Singh, shared a room each other, but there started to arise a communication gap between each other because our author is busy with her studies and grandmother is isolated herself a bit because of we know that she is a village lady. We also know about our grandparents. Okay, so it is slight uncomfortable for them to reside in the city life. Okay, so that's why it made a break or a rupture in the relation between the grandchild and the grandparent. Okay, so now the author says that there is no village dogs in the city and they can't even feed. So grandmother used to feed the sparrows that came daily in their terrace. So this is how grandmother spent her time when she is uprooted to city. So there